Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
A long weekend. Today's guests on Friday are brought to you by Langley Chrysler. Get ready this spring with up to $10,500 off Ram Classic. Whether you need a truck or Jeep to haul the family to sports or tow the boat to the lake, you can find it in store or online at langleychrysler.com. A reminder that Donnie and Dolly is presented by Able Auctions. If you have assets, inventory, or equipment that you need to sell, email sales at ableauctions.ca. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
Hey, listen, I'm getting ripped on the text line. I didn't say don't re-sign Ian Clark. I'm saying they're going to give it their best shot. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, they're going to have to find someone else, Donnie. Simple as that.
We were forgetting about Rolly Melanson, who was a long time.
Well, Rolly Melanson was, but
coach.
They had another one in between. Remember Demko when he first started? He had like 3 or 4 goalie coaches in 2 or 3 years. They went through a whole slew.
Maybe Jeff can help us with that. Curtis Sanford, of course, down in Utica as we bring in Jeff Paterson, brought to you by Langley Chrysler. Jeff, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm excited. It's a long weekend, but before that, some work to do here with you guys. So happy to be here.
And obviously you're going to be paying attention to what happens at 11 o'clock with Jim Benning and Travis Green down at Rogers Arena. But, Jeff, I know you wanted to focus on the letter Francesco Aquilini has sent to season ticket holders.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to focus on it because certainly Travis is the news of the day, and he's mentioned in there. But, this is how we hear from the ownership. I've been on your show before saying I just think there are points in time. In fact, I think on Wednesday I said it just felt like in the middle of this storm that this was one of those moments where I think we needed to hear from ownership in his own voice and, stand in front of the microphones and speak to the people. But he chooses Twitter throughout the season, and then we usually get a letter at the start and the end. And this one, it's very much, I think, what you would expect. He's disappointed by the record. He says that as owners, they remain committed to providing Jim and his management team with the full resources they need to take the Canucks to the next level. These are words on paper, so I try not to get too worked up or read too much into it. But, I find it a little interesting that, he includes JT Miller in the same sentence that he says they have one of the most promising group of young players in the league. I mean, JT Miller's 28, Bo Horvat's 26 now. So, to me, it's a league that's never been younger. I sort of have an arbitrary cutoff of 25, whatever. But I don't think anybody would think JT Miller is young by NHL standards anymore. Thought it was interesting that he included Jack Rathbone in his letter when he talked about Höglander, and Rathbone looked right at home in Canucks uniforms, and he can't wait to see Podkolzin. So, again, we can get caught up in who gets named and who doesn't by the owner. Bottom line is, I think this is all we're going to get from ownership, but the end of the day, they got the deal done that they had to get done, and that was Travis Green. And I know that there's still questions about his coaching staff. And, he says he's delighted that Travis has agreed to a new contract. That's the only line in the letter there, so no sense of how long the deal is from the hockey club. I know in the press release they call it a multi-year deal. We're all led to believe that it's 2 more years for Travis Green. So I think it's the right move. I've always felt that Travis and I have butted heads at times over questions and, some of the tactical decisions that he's made, but through and through, I think Travis Green has done a pretty good job for the Vancouver Canucks, and I think he's done a really good job of handling this market and the demands that are placed on a head coach in a hockey-mad market, and one that can be a little squirrely at times. So good for him. He gets his extension. It may not be as long as he had wanted ultimately, but boy, after a year of uncertainty and indecision by this ownership group, I think they got it right retaining Travis Green.
What took so long, Jeff, with the Green contract?
I'm sure the hockey club would tell you that it was the financial situation brought on by COVID, and there's an element of that. But Donnie, the minute they were willing to open up the vault for Thatcher Demko 5x5,
Pearson.
And Tanner Pearson a little bit less, but still a $10 million commitment to a player like Pearson, that signaled to me that they were willing to have the long view look, and so. I don't know if internally there were questions about whether Travis was the right guy to take this team to the next level. He's been here 4 years. That was a year longer than Willie D got. And look, both of them went to the playoffs once. again, I think Travis Green is the right coach for the Vancouver Canucks, but he's got a lot of work to do. And the seat will be hot. It always is on a head coach in a Canadian market. But, 4 years here, one trip to the playoffs. I think he did his best coaching work in that St. Louis series inside the bubble. But at the same time, it's go time now. And that's easy for me to say when you look at the lineup. I don't know how much better it's going to be next season, but it is time for Travis Green to install a defensive system that doesn't hang the goalie out to dry and relies on exceptional net minding for success. And you look at the Canucks' best months this year, before COVID hit, it was March, and almost all the success in that month was on the back of Thatcher Demko. He went 8-3 in March. He had a .937 save percentage for the month, which was 22 points higher than his overall season average. We've seen it with Jacob Markstrom the last couple of seasons. Travis Green has benefited from having spectacular goaltending while the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. But, they were 29th in the league in shots per game given up. Last year they were 28th, so they actually took a step back in that department. They've got to find a way to be less permissive and to start playing up ice, more time in the offensive zone, less time, with your goaltender under siege. And I think a lot of that is tactical and strategic, and that starts with the head coach and his coaching staff, and they've got to figure out a way to solve that and make that area of the game better for this hockey club.
Jeff, consumer confidence low, season ticket holders are ticked off. What do you want to hear from Jim Benning? I'll tell you quickly, I need him to articulate a plan today, a vision. I need him. He's got to step up today, and he's got a chance here to win some people back. What do you want to hear from Jim today?
I'd like that too, Rick, but I think, that question's been put to him over the years at many of his availabilities, and it's just not a road that he's prepared to go down. And it's, some can say, is it because there isn't a plan? And I think that after 7 years, that's certainly open to debate and discussion and gets talked about an awful lot in this market. But I would like to hear, it's not the young guys. It's not the core. Whether you include JT Miller in the young core, JT Miller is part of the core. There's no question about that as long as he's here and 2 more years on his contract. So, I expect that he's going to be back, but we'll see. But, it's not the core group. It's not the young guys that let this group down. It's the supporting cast, and it has been a revolving door really through Jim's time here. And I think when you look at the players that they've got under contract, Tyler Mott, you talked about him. He's got to get healthy, and he has to stay healthy. That's been the one knock. When he's in the lineup, everybody loves the hustle, but he has had his share of injuries, and it's unfortunate because he can help the Canucks, but he's got to stay healthy. You've got Mott. And then you've just got a whole bunch of question marks about the bottom six. And is next year going to be like this year, where they started with veterans and some of the veterans got hurt or didn't perform particularly well? Then they turned to the waiver wire, and we know how that worked for the Canucks. And then at the end, they had this opportunity to play the young kids, and they really didn't. Cole Lind got 7 games. I think his NHL debut might have been his best, but I didn't see a ton from Cole Lind. I'm not going to write him off, but you would have liked to have seen a little bit more with the opportunity. Gadjevich obviously barely played. Lockwood looked okay. I don't know if he's ready to take the next step. Of those new guys that were brought in, Matthew Highmore was probably the best, but Highmore was playing in the top 6, and that can't happen next year. Now, Podkolzin comes into the mix, and that's going to help, and I'm excited, like most people are, to see Vasily Podkolzin and where he slots in a second season for Nils Höglander. So again, most of the young guys that have been here as that core group, I do believe that that's a core to build around, but Jim has to do a better job of supporting those guys, and he's got to figure out this defense. The defense is, just full of holes and question marks and guys that aren't under contract and, where it goes from here. So given the cap constraints too, I think it's going to be difficult. We've heard in the past how much trouble Jim has had. He's admitted on the record that, he hasn't been able to move contracts out. There's been a reluctance or an unwillingness on the part of the organization to buy players out. I guess I'd like to hear if there's any wriggle room this summer as opposed to last year. Some of these guys with a little less term on their deals now. Is ownership willing to write those checks to make a few of those issues go away for the Canucks that maybe frees up a little cap space so that Jim can have some flexibility here moving to the summer?
I got 3 UFAs, Sutter, Edler, and Hamonic. Who do you want to see back?
I've got time for Travis Hamonic. I thought after the rib injury, I thought he settled in and slotted in with Quinn Hughes. Edler told us yesterday, definitively, he's not done. He wants to play, whether it's going to happen here. I don't think you can have Hamonic and Edler back, because if you have both of them back, you've essentially returned the same defense. Alex Edler, an all-timer, We know that he has been reluctant to waive his no trade in the past and has showed no appetite to chase the Stanley Cup and go elsewhere. But I do wonder if at this point in time he's going to have that decision with his family and his agent. And I don't know if there's room for Alex Edler at the age of 35, especially with the emergence of Jack Rathbone. I think everybody wants to see more of Jack Rathbone. And Brandon Sutter, Rick, I could see a world in which Brandon Sutter, like I've got all the time in the world for Brandon Sutter. I really do. As a person, I said yesterday, I could see him getting into hockey ops quite easily. Like I just thought that his comfort at the microphone yesterday, but your comfort at the microphone doesn't win hockey games. So at this stage of his career, 1-year deal, like $1 million if he wanted to stay as part of the Vancouver Canucks, but it would have to be in a fourth line capacity and kill some penalties. I don't want to see Brandon Sutter bumping up higher in the lineup. Third line center is a massive hole for this hockey club. He has shown he's not a puck distributor, playmaker at this stage of his career, and really never has been. Like if I knew that they could chain him to the fourth line center position and there would be no urge to play him higher in the lineup at any point, I would be okay with a short-term, low-dollar contract for a guy like Brandon Sutter.
Very quickly, Jeff, we're getting a few text into the inbox, the Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Do we make anything of Nate Schmidt not being available yesterday?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise around Nate Schmidt, and perhaps the fact that he wants out after just 1 year. And this is a guy that came up through the Washington system as the Capitals were building on their ascent to a Stanley Cup, and then obviously was plucked by Vegas and was part of that expansion team. And this is a guy that's been to the playoffs every year that he's played in the NHL, has been to the second round every year, save but one. And so this had to be frustrating. His first year in the new city and a pandemic and everything else. It was tough because we didn't have access other than Zoom, so I never really built a rapport with Nate Schmidt or got to know him, to know, what was going on with his life at the rink, away from the rink, whatever the case. So, but it did seem strange. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't met a microphone that he doesn't like, and he was nowhere to be found yesterday. So there does seem to be a little bit of smoke around Nate Schmidt, and I wonder if that will be addressed in any way by the general manager, because there is talk after COVID that there were a few unhappy campers, and maybe, as the summer unfolds, maybe we'll see that a few guys are going to ask for trades. I'm not aware of that. I don't think any formal requests have been made, 2 days after the season. But, that caught my attention yesterday, Donnie. There's no question about that.
Jeff, thanks for this. All the best. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
All right, guys. Have a great long weekend.